I call the meeting of the North Syracuse Central School District Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United.
Thank you. I'd like to observe a moment of silence following. Kathleen Avery, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Esther LeClaire, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Frederick Rappel Jr., a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School. Beatrice Blake, retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Tommy Galvin, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Robert Gardner, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. Margot Williams, a graduate of the North Syracuse Central School District. And Sue Wallace, a retiree of the North Syracuse. Thank you. We're going to begin with a proclamation for School Library Media Specialist Day, which will be April 4th. Throughout our school buildings, school library media specialists have an impact on the district students. They have accepted this exceptional responsibility with commitment, dedication, and love. School library media specialists of the North Syracuse Central School District are professionals of the highest caliber and have dedicated themselves to the ideals of their profession. Students, parents, administrators, and community members recognize, applaud, and appreciate their efforts to ensure students receive quality educational services. To honor the school library media specialists of the North Syracuse Central School District and their accomplishments, I, Paul Farfalia, President of the Board of Education of the North Syracuse Central School District, on behalf of the board, express our deepest gratitude and hereby declare April 4th, 2024 as School Library Media Specialist Appreciation Day. I'll make that motion. Look for a second. Second from Mr. Crabtree. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much.
How are you today? What we'd like to do is make sure that any of our school librarians introduce themselves, let people know their name and where they're located.
Hi, Kelly Forsyth from North Syracuse Junior High Library.
Kelly, on behalf of myself and the school board, we'd like to thank you for what you do and the certificate for school library media specialists. Yes, you may.
Okay, next we have a budget update. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Keegan and our directors. We're starting with our Director of M&L. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Evening.
So we have a few goals that we're going with this year with transportation. Optimize traverser program after a successful when we implemented it in 2020. People are very working with it. A lot better with the GPS programs that we have. More accurate information. The system has been more fluid as we think with the training going on. We're getting a lot better with it. Our next task on the Traversa system is to implement school tools information into it. Right now, we're maintaining a separate database, but one of our goals is just be in line with school tools and make sure that they're talking to each other, downloading information first, and then for us to take information and put it that all people or all right in the school tools and see transportation is assigned and how it's assigned. Right now, they'd have to call over to the transportation department, but that's one of our goals too, is to make sure that it's accessible on school tools for everybody to have, to view it. Develop a electric bus multi-year transition plan. Very hot topic, I want to say. I want to say North Syracuse is right where we're supposed to be. We had goals that we were looking to meet, and that's we had evaluations done. We had went and visited locations, got information about electric buses, had some projects looked at to see what we could do. So we're right in line with everything that needs to be done. Open. There's a lot of different thoughts about it, but I want to say that we're prepared to take on this technology, work with the technology in the time frame that's going to be outlined to us in the future. Right now, we have, so we applied for some grants or to utilize for buying a bus or buses and also setting up our operation. So I wanted to hear back about a few other grants. So what those new vehicles? Like to refer those right over to Don Keegan. I want to say, just as the director, I'm not afraid of this particular growth. We're going to take it very slowly. I'm speaking with a lot of my counter people and just making. Now I feel very comfortable. We obtained everything that we needed to do. Conversations and how it progresses. And continue to evaluate and expand transportation services to all parts of the school district. That's with sports trips, whether it's with field avenues that we need to invest. I personally go out on our school buses. I act as a bus driver. I think that we're doing a great better facet for me to
I want to thank you. Being on the OCM BOCES school board, I hear many things from many school districts about transportation, but you always have job fairs. And Don keeps telling us, because it's brought up quite a bit by my fellow board members, how many people do we have? So I want to thank you for that. That's extra time. It seems like you have a good group of bus drivers. I want to thank you, Matt, for everything. The bus drivers are the first ones that meet the students in the morning and set their ways on. So thank you.
I had a quick question. Regarding the electronic school buses, will that require specialized mechanics or training / possible certification for our current mechanics?
I just have to say, we have the ability to just transition out people right over. Very, very helpful with our transition and talk by transportation training for the new vehicle. Always offered for us to go to the location where they build. Right. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. London. Always a pleasure to hear from you.
I'm not loud enough as it is, right, Mr. Bowles? All right, it's the first time for hearing that. Good evening, good to be back. You've seen me recently, so I'll be brief and just kind of go over as we move ahead into next year. The three areas that I want to touch on are professional development and ENL and world languages. For PD, it's really about continuing our alignment, continuing to build capacity, to maintain that focus. So some of the pieces as we look ahead, it's not necessarily new initiatives, but it's, extending and continuing that work. So it's going to begin with our summer catalog of PD for staff, but that new staff orientation at the end of summer is a really kind of a high mark for us. And we get some great feedback about how comprehensive that is and how prepared and the participants feel and just how included they feel, how supported they feel entering into the career. We would like to expand the poverty simulation. We had all 6 elementary schools go through that Friday, so approximately 200 staff members, half in the 400 staff members, approximately 200 in the AM, 200 in the PM. So we'd like to kind of look at expanding that so that all of our buildings, all of our staff have had that experience by the end of next year. Increasing PD around English as a new language. I could list the PD that we're trying to expand in so many different areas. Of course, my bias put this one in the slide, but this has certainly become a heightened awareness, a heightened demand or request for us to get a variety of PD around English as a new language. To also look at all the different things we're offering that aren't instructionally or content oriented, but mental health, trauma-informed practice is a new one that I've gotten a lot of requests for to expand what we're offering to our staff about trauma-informed practices, social emotional learning. And of course, there's interconnectedness between all of this. The poverty simulation, our English as a new language, PD, that's connected to trauma-informed and mental health and social emotional learning. And then communication and conflict resolution skills. And that's from, our administration, our staff, our students, our parents, a number of different things that we're looking to expand in that area. And that last bullet is really kind of the one that starts and ends the circle, because since the pandemic, what we've seen is this just incredible increase in providers, in topics, and in platforms. PD is no longer limited or bound by geographic location and 4 walls. And so it's taken us this last 2 years or so to even get ready for that wave of all the online PD, what's accredited, what's acceptable, when it's taking place, the different offsite abilities, asynchronous learning. There's just so many different ways it's being offered. So trying to increase that to make it more accessible to more of our staff members. As we go ahead to English as a new language, that's me. Thanks, Mike. Some continued areas of focus for ENL. We've been doing a lot of work on getting our procedures and our protocols systematized to maintain that regulatory compliance. There's a lot of pieces that as this program grows, as the number of students grow, there's a lot of things that we are discovering that when we had fewer English language learners in the district, we were able to do a lot more of the regulatory requirements informally. That is increasing in the time and the skills and the monitoring of all those procedures. So we've utilized one of the services that we purchased, Elevation, to develop some new monitoring reports for the students. We're looking at protocols in world language for awarding credits, having that a little bit more defined and articulated as to what our process is for students that come in that may or may not have record of previous formal education and what we award them to get them towards graduation. We're looking to increase the opportunities for the homeschool connection. We consolidated our new entrant meeting last summer, and we had it here at district office so that all the families that were new to our district could come to one place. If there was an English language learner family that had maybe 5, 6 students who were in different buildings, instead of expecting them to go and attend 4 or 5 different meetings, 4 or 5 different events, we decided to say, let's pull it here, consolidate it. We had it in late August, and we brought in translators here. And instead of grouping students by grade level, let's say we grouped them by language so we could best utilize the translators and interpreters. And that was an idea that came right from the ENL team. So they've been looking at solutions to this and suggesting that. an ENL graduation for those students. And what that really means is the students who take the nicest slot testing in the spring, we don't get the results back till the end of the summer. They've graduated to the commanding level. So they've actually been released from services. So late fall up at CNS, we have a graduation ceremony for the junior high and senior high Ls. I'd like to expand that and consider that for all the K-12 Ls that go to that commanding level. So we're looking at some of those pieces that bring more of the homeschool connection to the forefront. And more quantity and diversity of the ENLPD. We have this year, Auburn is the Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network. It's an arm of BOCES that focuses on ENL. Our 17 ENL teachers are going down there 3 times this year for a full day of training and as their kind of their own professional learning community so that they can collaborate K-12 about their practices, about learning about the requirements so that they're all on the same page internally because our group is so large. Whereas the other districts tend to come together and send their 1 or 2 ENL teachers a few times a year to get to that group of 20. We have almost that group of 20 as our own district. And so our needs are unique. They've crafted that for our ENL teachers. We're working with the building administrators. They have the ENL programs there. They're doing 3 half-days this year. As a matter of fact, tomorrow afternoon is one of those half-days where the Auburn staff are going to come here and address some of our administrator needs around ENL. So we're expanding what we're doing. AFT had a great ENL professional development offering. John, I don't know how many we had attend that, but it was a high response rate, offered it again. They've been very flexible in how they've offered that virtually at the end of the school day. So many of our staff were able to take advantage of that. So again, we're trying to expand what we have available. For world languages, it's again, this dovetailing over the past couple of years of the pilot process, the new standards coming out, the curriculum work, and the assessment work. So we're looking to, by the end of next year, have that pilot process complete with the new standards aligned textbook products. And I put that in there, textbook products, because world languages is very unique. It's really not as much of a hardcover textbook anymore as it is those authentic resources connected to Spanish and French that they use that are more aligned to the new standards. Working on the horizontal and vertical alignment of the curriculum. I spent a lot of time on Friday with the eDoctrina units, and there's some great collaboration on some of these teams, 7-12 with world languages. Improving our recruitment and retention opportunities. This year, we brought back the 6th grade assembly for those kids that are enrolling in that. But we've also, with the chairs, I've been looking at the data over the past 5 or 6 years, some great data that Mrs. Norton was able to get to me, where we could look at where the drop-off is occurring, because at 7th grade, we have 100% of the kids coming in. They're required to take the course, right? So it's just an issue of French or Spanish. Whereas if they get to the upper levels, there's some very interesting data about who continues on, who doesn't, where those drop-offs occur. So we're trying to look at both recruitment and retention. Continuing to expand the Festival of Nations event and the Seal of Biliteracy. Festival of Nations, just a huge success this year. It's been great to have that brought back, and got some ideas already in the making for next year, how to make it even better. And the Seal of Biliteracy program this year, we have twice as many students that at this point in the year are on target. We've gone from just under 25 last year to almost 45 this year that are on course to get that Seal of Biliteracy, triliteracy, quad literacy this year. So we're looking to expand that and support that program even more. And then finally, you know, as my good friend, Mr. Crabtree will not let me forget, we are working on getting PRILA in our district. PRILA is a Puerto Rican Hispanic Youth Leadership Academy. And what that is students that go to BOCES a number of times during the year, and they learn about the state government. And then at the end of the year, they actually, some of them are selected to go to Albany for a full day engagement where they speak, they present. We will be at their meeting, at their gala next month to hear. It's a really incredible program that both Bob and I looked at ourselves about a year or two ago and said, why haven't we gotten this off the ground here in North Syracuse? So we're working on that. There's no guarantee, because you have to have the students that are interested in that level of commitment, because for the students, it's 7 to 8 days, full days across the year, with that culmination of, for some of them in Albany. So it's a great program. We're looking to get that off the ground for next year. Already started the planning process with Tanya Rosada Behringer from Auburn. And so we have some things that we're looking to continue to strengthen and then to expand. Sorry, I was rapid firing for you, but any questions on those areas? Yeah.
Yeah, I first I want to say that the Festival of Nations was an awesome event. Thank you. I had a great time. Can you go back to the previous slide, Joe? I just had a question. There we go. So I think that this poverty simulation is great. And one of the things that I was thinking about, especially given the last bullet, do you feel like the quantity of professional development providers that are out there are kind of, and the range of resources that you have, right? You're talking about virtual and all of that stuff. Are there ways in which obviously, we've been seeing that there's a demographic shift in our area, and there's probably going to continue to be. Do you think that what is out there kind of allows for preparation for new demographics and new groups of people coming to this area?
It's a great question. Yes and no. So a couple things, I don't want to belabor it too long, but New York State has an approved list of CTLE providers. The problem is since it's expanded to be such a virtual market, you no longer have to be in New York State. So we could have somebody at Montana State University providing a webinar online and they aren't in the New York State list, but it's a great program and they provide some great things. So kind of vetting the quality of what's offered is important. There's a huge quantity out there. A lot of folks are producing things. So some of it is high quality, some of it is not. So we try and be really rigorous in determining what is. There's a great deal of quality professional development at our disposal now. I would say that the challenge more than anything else right now is time. There's almost more out there than we can have access to or that we have bandwidth to absorb. So it's, if we can expand the way it's delivered. So last summer when we had more virtual, or two summers ago, when New York State offered some online modules through, was it through NICEgate? And staff were able to come in, let's say they were at their summer place and they could log on and be a part of that for a couple hours. It made it much more versatile for people to check in. There's pros and cons to all those models. So you get some accessibility and then sometimes you don't have the engagement. But by and large, there's more and more quantity around these topics popping up. The value of the poverty simulation, some of these things you have to make that decision of just in-person is best, even though it's harder to pull off because the quality of that experience for them to walk through with live actors, and those actors took it pretty seriously, their roles, you can't replicate in some of the other formats. So you're trading something in each, but they're definitely the variety and there's more out there. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so I just had a quick comment about the retention rates for the different languages. The two most major things I've seen in regards to reasons why students typically drop the language classes. The first one is just competition with other electives. So because, we have so many core classes that we have to take, there's only so many slots for elective classes. And a lot of students are like, ooh, I want to take this and this and this and this. And then they see what they can get rid of, and world languages is usually one of the first ones to go. For the other aspect, I feel like it's just the idea that once I'm pretty sure you have to take 7th, 8th, and 9th, correct? Oh, that's it? Okay, yeah, 7th and 8th. So basically after 7th and 8th, just the fact that they know they don't have to anymore, a lot of them just maybe even replace it with a study hall. So maybe if it's something like, maybe it could be something more so where there's some sort of incentivization or something of the sort to maybe encourage them to stay that extra year, because I feel like 7th and 8th grade are probably the hardest years of a language because you're really just getting the basics of it. So if you're able to get them even for just that one more year into 9th grade, into the start of their high school, I think you could definitely keep a lot of them for a lot longer.
Yeah, Thomas, you make some great points there that are actually, you're articulating exactly the struggles. We're competing with a lot more people who want a piece of that pie, and their technology is changing the needs for world language with translation on your phone, in other cultures. So that's impacting it. We are finding that the numbers are showing that the students who enter French actually stay until the end. There's more of a retention rate in French long-term. And just those students decide if I'm getting into this, I'm getting to it because I want to be in there, we are actually losing more students in Spanish when the requirement finishes. So there's more students in Spanish, but higher percentage of French students that finish out to those higher checkpoints. And you're right, that the competition with other electives is just really stiff right now. And our culture for those two languages, they're much more accessible all around you when you think of, you're watching a movie with subtitles or translation on your phone, or how many commercials have you seen for Babbel? I mean, it's making it easier. So it's easier, I think, to choose something else right now. It's definitely challenges. We tried to incentivize the programs. We have some great field trips that you've approved, which is making it so that some of the students really want to go on and get to that place. The SEAL, we're trying to make that more attractive as something that as you graduate and go to college, that's, a mark of excellence to try and, to incentivize staying in there until the end of that sequence. Definitely we're competing with a lot of other pieces right now.
Wonder if, piggybacking on that, if people know that French and Spanish 4 and 5, you're getting college credit for, and a lot of times that's filling up, like you don't have to take it in college then, so that might incentivize
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, it could. And I mean, again, I just came into the world languages piece 4 years ago. And so world language coming out of the pandemic was also a challenge as well, because it's so highly communicative and we were virtual. And that, so I think we're recovering from some of that. We're recovering from some of the gap of the 7th and 8th grade students at the beginning of the pandemic are now at the higher levels. So it's getting more complex. They entered the language, as you're saying, at the hard point when it was virtual. And so that gap we're trying to make up, and our teachers are working incredibly hard to kind of close some of that ground too, but that could be something that would incentivize it as well. That's my question.
Just one more thing to add, based on what we were talking about before, is something that I did think was pretty interesting is the new World and Culture Explorations elective at the high school. I think that whole focus on the culture of the language, I feel like that's definitely potentially a place that we could go with the languages in the future, is shifting the focus and the incentivization over from actually learning the language, which obviously will still be the focal point of the class, towards advertising to the students these cultures, specifically Spanish and French cultures, that are becoming more and more integrated into our society. I think
That course has actually been a big hit. And they've worked very hard to build something that's both rigorous and very engaging with that course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Goldberg, pleasure to see you again. Oh.
Sorry, yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Almost took a tumble. I will explain my attire in a second, but first of all, how exciting, electric buses, world language, professional learning, we got it going on. So, just really quickly to bring you up to speed again with social studies. Next year, it is really about, deepening what we have in place, making sure that we continue to resource social studies, and that we continue our work on our curricula, including our focus on K-4 in terms of writing and reading. And we also want to really explore some new assessment practices so that we're making sure that kids know and are able to do what we want them to know and are able to do. That even goes beyond just passing the test. We want them to be really excellent critical thinkers. And we want them to be great writers. And so using an approach like the Writing Revolution is one way to get at it. And again, moving social studies away from sage on stage, talk at you, to really make it much more engaging and hands-on history. And mark your calendars. May 9th, there's a history fair at both middle schools on the same day. Initially, we were going to mush them together, but we thought because of transportation and for families, it might be easiest for them to be in their home schools. And participation on the part of students in the history fair will be their first credits toward their seal of civic readiness, which we are hoping this spring to anoint is not the word, but to give to students that they've earned it. We're hopefully going to have between 300 and 350 students earn that seal. It's the most in the county, not bragging. Yes, I am bragging. And actually, Thomas, would you tell everyone what you're doing in terms of expanding the food distribution?
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you, Mrs. Goldberg. So, this kind of goes into play in the service part of the Civics Readiness Program, where we've taken the food collection and redistribution program at CNS, and we're expanding it to some of the other schools. Right now, we've currently got it going on in both of the middle schools, Roxborough and Gillette. And Gillette, we just got our first batch of donations back from them. And after just the first 2 weeks of the program, they were able to collect and donate over 400 items, which I might say is more than we've ever seen ever. Because like at the CNS, there's double the amount of students, and usually in a month, like for example, in January, the whole month of January, with 1,800 kids at CNS, we got about 450 items. And then in 2 weeks, in school of half the size, we got the same amount. So it's very exciting to see how involved the kids are getting and like the awareness that they're having in the problem of food waste.
So coming soon to Fortune magazine cover 2035, look for Thomas.
2032.
Maybe, you're right. Yeah, that's right. I may be overestimating. But we're just really excited about what's happening in social studies, which is a wonderful thing to be able to say. So moving on to SEL. So as you know, we have monthly mental health themes. March is Get Moving in March. And today was kicked off Movement Matters Week. And this Monday was Get Moving Monday. And so we asked people to wear green. This is the only green thing I own, so welcome to me. But tomorrow you can all participate in Let's Try It Tuesday. So you can try a sport or physical activity that you wanted to. If you ask my husband, pickleball's the thing. So you might want to check that out. But SEL, we are really excited about the work we've been doing on both emotional and cultural competencies, and are looking moving forward to leverage what's already in place so that every student feels safe, welcomed, and affirmed in our buildings. And everything that we use is data-driven and research-based approaches. So we'll be continuing to look at some of the growth that our schools have made as measured by the BIMAS, and continue moving forward to implement programming that is going to change and expand students' skill set in terms of managing their own emotional competencies. We are continuing to work on our protocol skills and support so that across all of our buildings, we're going to use consistent languages and approach, and we are going to work harder to embed trauma-informed, culturally responsive, and restorative practices throughout our system. We want to continue to fortify our mental health supports. We have an incredible team, including Amanda Pollard, who's here this evening, our family engagement specialist at Rocks Middle. I also want to shout out to Matt Conti, who had some of our mental health staff come in and do training with bus drivers and aides in the educator suicide safety training, which we have done in all of our buildings and hope to do with our food service workers, so that all of our staff can be a safety net for all kids. We want to continue to expand our partnerships with families and community agencies along with the county. And last but not least, we know that we can no longer work in isolation, that families and our school district must work together to serve the needs of our community. Exploring our community schools model is, again, where we're going, and much of that, including the poverty simulation, can be funded through BOCES COSER. I've stunned you into silence.
Yes. Thank you. I thought it was a spring theme for tomorrow.
Oh, well, that's time. Thank
Close,
you.
all right. For late St. Patrick's Day.
There we go. People were like, it was yesterday. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the support for this work.
Good evening. I'll be sharing the focus and goals for the next 4 departments. The first one starting with science. And as some of you know, I've been wrestling the last few years to make sure that we have sufficient time for science instruction at our elementary level, K through 4. That's going to be another goal of mine this year, to make sure that we again increase the amount of time that we have for all students to access science at each level of our elementary level, and to make sure they're doing the hands-on, minds-on experiences that we should be getting or should be doing to develop the critical thinking and deductive reasoning skills for those students. The second bullet has to do with transitioning over to 2 new courses at the high school and junior high. That is Earth and Space Sciences, replacing Earth Science, and our life science, new life science course, a biology course, replacing Living Environment. Along with that, or included in that, would be transitioning over to the new 3 new investigations at each of those levels or disciplines, with the lab practical being replaced and the Part D, mandated Part D labs and living environment being replaced. And again, most of the schools in Central New York will be transitioning over to those new science programs, although the state is giving us another year after that. But we're making the jump or the leap next year, as I reported on about a month ago. The third bullet has to do with making sure that at each of the 5th and 8th grade levels, where we have our new 5th and 8th grade science tests, that those students are meeting the 4 lab requirements that they have to the new labs. Unfortunately, what's happening is that's a multi-year, unlike the Regents laboratories, where they complete those labs in 1 year, the 1,200 minutes. In 5th and 8th grade, it's over multiple years. So we're having some difficulty or some challenges, I should say, tracking them, and then making sure that those students, we find sufficient time within the classroom to get those students who may have either missed them in prior years or who are new to the district. So that's a challenge of ours, and we're working through those. And again, we're going to, as always, promote STEM opportunities for our students to compete in competitions such as Science Olympiad and the most. We're also going to continue with science fairs, our Adirondack and Marine summer science camps, and visitations to colleges and STEM businesses such as SRC. Next year, we'll be implementing 2 new college level courses in science. One is OCC Physics 103 and 104, which is 8 credits, so students can earn 8 college credits. And the electromechanical technology course, known as Problem Solving and Technical Math Fundamentals, is going to be 4 college credits that students can earn. So again, those are some of the focuses or goals that we have in science. Or before I go further, are there any questions on the sciences? As always, we're looking to, increase those real life experiences that we have in family and consumer science. That means taking field trips, bringing in guest speakers, providing more community connections with businesses. We also know that there's an ever expanding and changing market out there in terms of what's going on with careers, especially with AI. And our 8th grade teachers are doing a lot in career development, making sure our students have all the latest up-to-date information on some of the new careers that are coming out. They're, again, like always, the last 2 have to do with promoting our career and technical education program. FACS is an elective course, meaning that once kids get out of 8th grade, it's no longer mandated. So we're competing with other areas for those elective classes. And of course, our career and technical education courses meet one of the 4 strands for endorsement that these students can take. So we have numerous courses, about 30 courses that each of the teachers at both the high school and junior high are working to promote are working hard to promote, and as always. So Those again, that have to do with the last two strands or the last. The next one is health, I believe. Health education. The last couple of years, we've provided health, the mandated health course at the junior high level, and this provides opportunities for our students in ninth grade to take other electives as they get up to the high school. And again, we're going to ensure that we continue doing that. This year, I believe we offered 4 sections of health at the junior high, and again, we're going to continue offering that because it allows kids to take other electives. And the last 2 bullets have to do with providing students with special needs or students who have specialized needs to make sure that we're providing an environment that is both friendly and conducive and that they can be successful within those environments. So that includes the SCAPE program, the 15 one-on-one programs, and courses like adulting and tools for change. Last slide has to do with our business education program. Again, this is mainly elective type programs at the high school level. Increase the number of students who are completing or competing in SEEP, or our Career Exploration Internship Program. During the pandemic, this program kind of went by the wayside because a lot of businesses did not extend an invitation for those internships. We're building that back up. We have a teacher who's very focused on getting the numbers up in those in that SEEP program. We also are looking to expand the number of connections we make with businesses and partnering with other professionals within the community to, again, expand our opportunities for kids in the internship program and job shadowing programs. We have real-world applications, opportunities for kids who work in the college store or our school store or Core Federal Credit Union, which are both at the high school. And we offer 5 college-level courses in both SUPA and OCC courses. And of course, the OCC courses are free to students who live in Onondaga County. We have 3 SUPA programs that we currently offer college credit in also. And then, of course, the last few years, we've immensely increased the number of students who receive career and technical education endorsements on their diploma. We've also increased the number of students who are in the Business Education Honor Society, and we've been continuing to increase the number of students who are involved in the after-school business club as we transitioned from DECA to junior achievement a few years ago. Are there any questions on any of the 4 areas that I reported on?
I am very impressed, John, with the career exploration internship. Last year, Paul and Dan and I had the opportunity, I believe it was last year, I can't remember, the years go by so quickly for me, but I would love someday to see that expand to 200 or 300 kids that are seniors, giving them the opportunity to go out in the community and work and see the jobs. That's what I feel education is. I don't, we're going to need lots of money from the state, but it really, that's the way students learn.
Yeah,
Now-
we did take a hit, as I mentioned, during the pandemic, obviously,
Right.
because a lot of businesses weren't allowing students to do an internship program. We are building that back up. We used to run 2 or 3 complete classes with that, about 50 or 60 students. We're not at that level yet, but our hope is to get to that level in the next
For
few years.
instance, I went again this year, I think it was this year, and a young man talked about working for the veterinarian, and he ended up saying, that wasn't for me. I want to work with the animals. I want to do something, but wow, that's not, think of the amount of money he saved by not going to school for veterinarian, I mean, that's what I would like to see someday. The other part that I'm just going to talk about, even though it's not here, is your leadership, because I'm at BOCES, with the CTE program. Our own Tom got an opportunity to see the programs that we have. Last week I went over and met the CNS students that are in CTE and the other embedded programs. It's some of the top kids at CNS. And I'm working diligently to show students that we have awesome programs. In your leadership, you went to open house with me, you've gone over with our administration to show support. With Micron coming in, that's the answer. Thank you for your leadership, John.
Thank you. Career and technical education for our career exploration internship. Yeah, so right now we run about one class, about 15 to 20 students. Yeah, we used to be up to about 3 classes before the pandemic. Back to those. Establishing the community partnerships right now. The person who's in charge of that program, Amanda Parker's doing a very good job of making connections. Any other questions?
Thomas?
Hi. So this isn't really a question, more so a potential idea to kind of spur, ignite more interest in these 2 courses because the business and facts subjects are generally, elective courses. But I think a great way of potentially shining some more light onto them is by implementing some maybe interesting videos into the morning announcements, potentially highlighting some of the highlights of a facts class or a business field trip. And then also with the job shadowing, I don't know if they do that at the junior high. I know they do at the career center at the high school. Maybe just highlighting some of like the personal experiences and stories that people have had. Because I feel like they've definitely announced job shadowing on the announcements before, but I feel like people would be a lot more engaged if they actually saw like a story or situation to go along with it to see what that experience would really be like.
Yeah, those are great ideas. And obviously, we do a lot of promotions, do some promotions over the announcements, but a lot of the promotions take place like in the promotion days up at in the cafeterias or outside the cafeterias. At the junior high school, they do promotions quite frequently over the announcements and classes. But yes, I think those are great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Redmond, welcome. Yep, okay.
My reputation precedes me.
A little dark, I can't see well.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some information about the Fine Arts Department. Just a few thoughts. The first slide really articulates some of the philosophies and the important elements of the fine arts, which are the music and visual arts, media arts programs. One of the things that makes them very special is they provide an opportunity for all students to explore their creativity and their self-expression. Promoting these behaviors benefits our students' ability to problem solve. It encourages risk-taking in the good way within the classroom and fosters innovation. The self-reflection that takes place in these courses allows students to find their voice. The other thought that I want to really highlight is that it promotes critical thinking skills and improved academic performance. I'm always the first one to advocate fine arts for the fine arts. It's an area unto its own that is extremely important, and it's what separates us and makes us special individuals. But there is a tremendous amount of information out there that the time, the focus, the analysis that are embedded into the arts programs provide students with that additional layer of cognitive development that enriches their educational experience as a whole. So how do we get there? So the first thing, first bullet, continuing to offer all of the required and elective courses. A lot of school districts would be happy if they could say that we're maintaining where we are, which is always a good starting point. But more importantly, this coming year, we're actually increasing the offerings that we have within our fine arts areas. Some of the courses we have are going from half-year to full-year courses, and we have other ones that are being added to the program of study. So some of these are Guitar 2, Studio and Painting, Media Arts 2, which to me is one of the really important courses. We've had Media 1 for a while, and now we're expanding that out. Media Arts is a area within professional associations, organizations, that they need these types of people to come in and really use technology and promote what their companies are doing through that ability within media arts. Product design, which is another arts class where the students will be using CAD, Photoshop, and other programs to actually create items and then use 3D printers to render them. And we have a filmmaking sequence now of 1, 2, and 3 scheduled for next year. Providing access for all students, and this is really another one of the important core elements of what we do. So students that are enrolled in any of the visual or media arts programs, all of the materials that are needed, the supplies are provided through the district so that students have no access barriers at all to participate and take those courses. And the same thing is true with our music program. We provide instruments for the students that are in need of them. In addition to that, we have all the necessary supplies so that they can continue to participate throughout the year, down to if if an instrument needs to be repaired, we have the capacity to send that out. We make sure that we allocate funds for all of that. Alignment of all of our curricula, which is an ongoing and never-ending process. Right now, we are focusing on the horizontal and vertical alignment of what is being offered within the classroom as far as the type of instruction, and even trying to work it down to the timeliness of when it's offered, so that if a student transfers from one middle school to another and they start the visual arts class or they're in a music class, that when they get to the other building, they're within a range where they don't feel lost, because what's being covered is aligned from building to building. And the never-ending portion of that is we're constantly search and seeing what we need to be updating and changing so that we are staying current with what is best practices. Professional development, a shout out again to the district as well as Dave London for organizing the 15th just this past Friday. I'm continuing to work to bring in targeted professional development that aligns with what we were doing. So one of my things that I had on that day was bringing in a specialist to discuss music literacy, focusing on rhythm, so that we are using the same nomenclature from beginning to end, and that students have that consistent vocabulary regardless of the building that. And in addition to that, we have staff that attend conferences out of district, and we support that as much as we possibly can. Student engagement and activities. This is the best part of what we do. Our program is designed to be a come one, come all. It doesn't matter if you're there because mom or dad wants you to be participating and performing on an instrument, or if you're doing it because it's something you enjoy and you want to just continue it throughout the rest of your life. And then, of course, there is no truly starving artist. There are professions and vocations that you can follow that will, put food on the table and a roof over your head. And we have the capacity to provide the opportunities for those students as well, whether it's through district-sponsored events or local, regional, or state-level honor groups that our district provides the opportunity for them to access. So co-curricular. Actually, are there any questions about music or art before we move on? So this is really, the co-curricular activities are an extension of what we're offering during the day. So hopefully, I know some of you were there, the musical that took place right next door. Musical theater is an extension of what goes on during the day within our vocal ensembles, the instrumental classes, the John Nadler classes with the theater tech. Everything that happened was a result of what goes on during the day. And the theater tech to me is one of the most important parts because not everyone wants to be in the pit playing an instrument or they want to be on the stage singing and dancing. Having these additional courses provides students the opportunity to find what is special for them, and it gives them the reasons to, again, want to be within the building during the day. So how are we supporting that? Efficient systems. Again, I've got to give a shout out to Matt Conti, who was here earlier, and also Shannon Owens. They are the two people that I work the closest with over at the transportation office. They were very happy to see me join the team, especially when they didn't have to worry about organizing and scheduling a lot of the trips that take place. With marching band and winter guard and drumline. So there's a lot of activities that take place. There's a lot of organization that needs to happen in order for them to get there. So the Traversa program has really, it's made my life easy, other than the overwhelming amount of emails that I get every time a trip is changed or updated or requested or approved. So that has been extremely beneficial to make sure that the students are getting to where they need to be, as well as working with transportation to procure the vehicles that are necessary to move the equipment to these events. It's not just the students, but it's also getting all of their equipment there as well. The other aspect that has been really beneficial to work with Matt Irwin on is the master library system, especially with the high school being offline for the most part, as far as a lot of the large scale events. I've been working with Matt as far as providing updates and changes to the flow chart within the master library system, so that when a building is being used, additional people are being notified about it so that there aren't surprises. And when a group shows up, they actually have the lights working, the sound system is set up and ready to go, chairs and stands are ready for whatever the assembly or performance may be. And that's for students that organize groups within our district, as well as outside groups. Communicating and collaborating. So I've been working a lot more closely with the boards that operate within our district as far as the co-curricular activities, having meetings with them, communicating with them so that their needs are being met and that we can get everything taken care of. As well as, again, back to transportation, we just had the Winter Guard attend a competition out of state. And whenever that happens, they end up using a coach bus because it's a longer ride. All of our coach buses that are used through the district have to be inspected through the transportation department. I got a text message saying that they found an issue with one of the buses and that they were addressing it. The transportation company provided a different bus that was inspected, and students were able to travel safely to their event. So I was aware of what was going on right from the onset in case there was an issue or a question. So again, that communication's been extremely important. Last one, allocation of resources and managing them. Budget time. So making sure that our groups are being supported to the capacity at which we can. A lot of the co-curricular clubs are fundraise. They do a lot of supporting themselves, which is common practice in speaking with directors from other districts. But we are doing everything that we can to make sure that they have what they need so that they can perform and participate. For answers to
Well,
Bob's questions, probably.
I just want to thank you. I mean, it's, you know, I know the musical is, you do a lot more than that. Your department does a lot more than that, but that's one of the flagship pieces that people see, and great show. You have board members who've had children perform, and those staff that have children currently behind the scenes that you mentioned here. So I thank you for your role in that, because I mean, we had a great program before you got here, but I'm glad you're here with that, and nice to see you playing the percussion there. So hope you had fun doing that, and anytime anybody can bring more 70s music back to the world, I think it's going to be easy 80s kid. It's going to be
Disco will never die.
yeah. Although we didn't really dress like that, just but
Well, I appreciate those comments, and really to speak to that just a little bit more, you know, what we always recognize, what we always acknowledge and praise are the high profile things that we see. the concert on the stage, the musical theater, the Festival of the Arts that's coming up. I got to get my plug in for that, April 13th, 11 to 2 next door. But those are, the programs that we offer are sequential programs, and often overlooked are the teachers at the elementary level that are instilling and inspiring these students to want to continue and to participate through high school and at much higher levels, and hopefully for the rest of their lives. So it's always great, and the high school faculty always receive all the accolades, but again, we can't forget about the people that help to get those students there.
I just want to make a general comment, based on all of the presentations we had today. And your presentation, of course, was great, as always. But I want to say that, there were a few groups that came up here that talked about electives and things that necessarily are not requirements for graduating. But as we are faced with difficult decisions, to remember that what all of the departments here are doing are truly facets of a well-rounded education, and any one department that's lacking ends up causing hardships for the rest of them. And I think that when we are making decisions, and the general public and our folks out in New York State that are supposed to be giving us money, that it is remembered that all of these things are critical parts of an education, and any single one of them that's lacking causes a problem for everybody.
Thank you. Now the budget update. Thank
Well,
you.
so you might be wondering, we've now listened to all of our directors present, and I think the reason we do this as part of the budget process is because the budget's more than numbers. I mean, you can see all of the amazing programs and opportunities for kids, and how important it is, both academically, socially, emotionally, for kids to have those connections and those opportunities. And so the budget process is a challenge because we're trying to fund so much, but what we're funding is so worthy of the funding, and it's so important to our kids. So just to give you a little update as to where we are. So all the directors and principals have submitted their departmental budgets. And so we've got a handle on, on pretty much everything that is requested. Our pilot information is now final, and so therefore our tax cap is final at 2.98% increase. New York State budget is not final. Therefore, we don't have our final state aid information. The big missing piece is the foundation aid. Getting that fully funded, that's worth about $887,000 to us. And, word out of Albany, honestly, I'm a little confused. We'll have to see how it all plays out as to whether we get that aid or not. We're going to continue to review the budget submissions, which include, I want you to know, include a lot of the conversations that you heard tonight about what the merits of particular programs and how we should balance things out to make our budget balance. And we're going to take advantage, of attrition wherever possible, so that where we have a member of our team leave, we're going to look at, do we need to replace that position or not? And that's natural that we would either do that every year. It's just that much more important as we get into a tight budget. So why is the budget this year so challenging? I just want to remind everybody that we're dealing with historically high inflation rates for the third year in a row. And we can only pass 2% inflation on in the tax levy. So that basically means we have to absorb it. And by absorbing it, that's code for make a cut somewhere else to make the budget balance. And after the first year that was tough, second year it gets tougher. And it's really difficult in the third year, which is the year we're budgeting for right now. We've talked ad nauseum about the loss of the American Rescue Plan funding, $2.7 million. And so what you're looking at when you looked at our initial budget a couple weeks ago, what you saw was us absorbing all of those expenses into the general fund. That's why it looked like there was a large increase in expenditures. The reality of it is we're not really doing anything more. We're just, instead of funding it with federal funds, we're funding it in the general fund. And that's why you saw the 5+ % increase in expenditures. It was because it included that $2.7 million of expenditures that wasn't included in the general fund previously. I've already mentioned the governor's foundation aid proposal, which hopefully the legislature will be able to do something about that. And the other thing is the extremely tight labor market has put a lot of pressure on compensation costs. And we're looking at that really closely as we work through this budget. And then finally, healthcare costs are projected to increase, again, the second year in a row by, over 10%. And so there's a lot of moving pieces happening. I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be in a position where cabinet and administrators, will be able to pull together a budget recommendation for you in hopes that we can share a much more granular look at the budget on April 1st. That's the next board meeting, in preparation for the board's adoption of the budget. And Jill, you can just pull up the April 1st is budget discussion, deliberation, and then April 17th, obviously, is the adoption of the budget. Tonight, you'll notice we're going to be approving the bus bond proposition and the notice of budget hearing and election. So we'll get those things completed, and it'll be May 21st before we know it. So we got a lot of work to do. Any questions?
I have some comments. And this is Bob Crabtree talking. It's not necessarily the board. We have to thank the President of the United States, Mr. Biden, and Congress for the monies that we have gotten because of COVID. If it wasn't for his leadership and Congress knowing what we needed, the food and everything. So, we were lucky to get those fundings. I remember when we went through a budget before Don was here, Obama came through for us too. We saved about 20 teachers. So we need to remember what history is as we move forward. I have a concern with the timeline, and I want the board, I'm glad it's up here. The reason we're meeting April 17th, which is a Wednesday, is me because I'm a problem child. BOCES, all school districts must vote on that day. That's a BOCES thing. So we're meeting on Wednesday instead of Monday. I'm an optimist, but Holy Week is coming up when the budget is supposed to be completed. I don't see it being completed. I am an optimist. Maybe things are going to happen this coming week, but I don't think you're going to see your legislators because of Holy Week doing a lot of business. So I am really not sure if March 31st is a ideal time that we're going to get it, which means we meet the next day, April 1st. The only time this board will have a chance to really look at the budget before we vote on the 17th. I'm proposing down the road that if this happens, that we meet maybe on the 15th, because me as a board member cannot vote on a budget not knowing some things. So that's just me. I'm not on the budget committee, but I want to throw these things out to my friends that are on the budget committee. I'm going to be looking at class size, K through 12. I'm going to be looking at SEL, what we're continuing in this district, because if anything is disturbed in that area, I'm going to have problems. And the third one is safety. So Paul and Michael and whoever else is on the budget, I'm going to be looking at class size, SEL, and safety as my priorities. And I just don't think in one meeting we're going to be able to solve it, because I don't think you're going to know. I'm hoping you will know by April 1st, but I'm hoping you do. But that's me. I just want everybody to realize.
Just to piggyback on what he said, because we have had to have special board meetings in the past, I would, if we look at doing that, because I agree, I don't hear a lot. Maybe things will fall together in Albany quickly. I don't know. I have not heard a lot, and I was there last week. Maybe we could look at that week in between April 1st and the 17th instead of the 15th, 2 days before. That would help me. if
Definitely
it's
makes sense.
possible. But again, I know there's a lot unknown, but
Thank you very much.
here we have a presentation, Ms. Norton. Good news.
Oh, good. Okay. I'll try it again. So I'm Donna Marie Norton, Executive Director of Data Accountability and School Improvement. So every year I come and do an accountability presentation, and for some newer board members, I will give you some definitions of some terms and then kind of where we fell. We finally got results back from State Ed, and it was a kind of a split thing. So in the fall, we got our test results back, but we didn't get our accountability status. So we knew that we did better, but we didn't know how we did compared to every other school in the county and in the state. So now we do. So that's what we're going to talk about. Remember that this is actually based on 22-23 performance. So we have state testing 3 through 8 that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. That's not what this is about. It's actually, we call it an autopsy. It's a terrible term, but we're looking back to last year's performance. Forensic. That's a, you know what, that, Paul, that is a much nicer way to say it. Thank you. Forensic. So why do we have it? We have the Every Student Succeeds Act. It is a federal act. And I looked for the definition on the federal website because I was trying to think of like, how can I explain this to everybody? It's a law and it holds school accountable for how students learn and achieve. And then the aim is to provide an equal opportunity for, the term that they use is disadvantaged students. And that could be students who are disadvantaged in many different ways, including our students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, you know, all sorts of stuff. So that's what it's about. So this law actually replaced NCLB, which was No Child Left Behind. ESSA became a law in 2015, and it's really how the state and the federal Department of Education look at schools and compare them to one another. That's how they hold us accountable. So before the pandemic, there were more categories that they looked at and compared us on. After the pandemic, we are still in this kind of fuzzy time when a few categories are not being included. We think that next year, everything's coming back. So that's the test that's going to be in a couple of weeks. Everything's coming back. But I'm going to give you some of the things that to look for the future and some of the things that are current. So right now, we are not looking at student growth. Student growth would compare how a student did last year to how a student does this year, and we're looking for 1 year at least worth of growth. And we're not doing that. So that's on pause. It'll come back next year. CCCR is college and career readiness. That's how much credit you get for students that have advanced diplomas, are in AP courses, dual credit. I think John was talking about some OCC courses, things like that. Right now, that's on pause because data doesn't think the data is all that reliable, but it will come back again next year. And then the last one is academic progress. That's performance toward a set goal. New York State kind of comes up with these targets that we have to meet. That's going to be progress. And they really pulled back on that because the pandemic just messed everything up. And it's taken a couple of years for schools and for kids to catch up. So that's on pause, but we'll be coming back next year. What is included? So graduation rate is included because it was deemed that the data was reliable. And honestly, our graduation rate has been healthy even throughout the pandemic. You know, students were exempted from exams. That certainly helped in some areas. But our graduation rate has really remained stable, and we're in the above 90 percentile, which is fantastic. ELP, that's our students, English language learners. New York State felt that that data was valid. Chronic absenteeism, unfortunately, State Ed thought that that data was valid because we are compared to everybody else, and everybody in the state is really struggling to get students to come back to school full time. Everyone is experiencing higher rates of chronic absenteeism. And then performance, which I'm going to show you, is split into 2 different categories now. This is new since the pandemic. So performance, it used to be just 1 measure that they used. Now they've split it into 2. So we have weighted performance and then we have core performance. And I wanted to explain the difference. So weighted performance is the score for everyone that should have been tested. So any kid that was enrolled at any time that should have taken the exam is the denominator. And then how students scored on the 3 through 8 tests is the numerator. Versus core was only the students who tested. And remember that we do have some refusals, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But if a student is absent, is on virtual learning, Actually, they don't take the test if they're on virtual learning for the most part, or refuses the exam. Those kids are not in the core, so only of the kids that took the exam. Okay. And then what? So we get a pile of scores on all of these measures. How are they looked at? State Ed actually ranks us. So this is where we start to be compared, apples to apples, I guess, other schools in the state. So if you are in the lowest 10%, and I'm going to show you the numbers in each of our groups in a little bit, you get a 1. 10.1 to 50%. I'd like you to look at that range. Okay. It is not my decision to have a range that looks like that. Paul and I are actually having a heart attack over that range right now because that is just not right. You get a 2. If you are 50.1 to 75, you get a 3, and then above the 75% range, you get a 4. I know that 2 range just drives me nuts. It's mathematically, anyway. Okay, so that's how they do it. If you are in the lower levels, if your kids are not scoring well or not coming to school or not, in any of those categories that we talked to before, for 2 consecutive years, you end up in one of those categories, a TSI or a CSI. And a TSI means that if one of the subgroups performs low for 2 years in a row. So let's say it's your students with disabilities 2 years in a row, then you'll be a TSI school. Or if it's your economically disadvantaged students 2 years in a row, then you're TSI. In order to be a CSI school, that's the bigger category, the rougher one, the one that we get nervous about. A CSI category means that you're all students group. So that's everybody scored low 2 consecutive years. And something to note is that it takes 2 years of low data to get on the list. And unfortunately, it takes 2 years of good data to get off the list. So just so you know how that plays. Okay. So how did we do? Let's look at each of our groups and how we did. Okay. So where it says for the district, target district, when I did this presentation, that's where we were. We are no longer there now. We got a letter from State Ed that said you have 1 more meeting to go, right, Chris? And then you're done and we will no longer be a target district. So it really has nothing to do with the student performance. So if we look overall at the district, we scored mostly in the 2s and 3s. ELP, which is the English language learners, we didn't have enough kids. You have to have a subgroup of at least 30 to 40 depending upon, and we just don't have enough kids in those secondary schools to get a score. And then our grad rate obviously doesn't apply in the elementary, middle school, and then, the secondary, so. All right, so now let's look at each of the individual buildings, and I want to give you kind of a comparison how they did before. And I wrote some little notes down there on the presentation so that you can see that, and then how they're doing now. So core, weighted, ELP, there's no ELP population really at Allen Road right now that is going to count for the test, and then chronic absenteeism. They stayed the same for all of those categories, except for chronic absenteeism, they got better. So they were a 2 last year, they went up to a 3 this year. So I think it's important for us to see where we got better, and maybe some places where we didn't. Okay. Bear Road, again, not really an ELP population there. So they stayed the same except for chronic absenteeism, which also went from a 2 to a 3. So that's a nice theme to see, that we're tackling chronic absenteeism, that we're getting kids to school more often. If they're not here, we can't teach them and they're not going to do well on state exams. So I think it's important to say. Okay, Cicero. Look at Cicero L's chronic absenteeism number, right? They're in the top 7 or top 25%. So I think that's really great to see. They ended up with a 4. Their core performance went down. They went from a 3 to a 2. So I think, that's something to look at. ELP, they didn't have enough kids in that subgroup to get the score, but it's really pretty cool to see that chronic absenteeism number. Okay. Lakeshore also scored a 4 in the chronic absentee. Again, over and over again, I just want to show you that we are really tackling getting kids back into school. Their core and their weighted went down. They did score a 3 last year, or 2 years ago. And then, last year they ended up in the 2s. But I think getting kids to school, getting the instruction is going to help us, especially this year, bring that core and that weighted up. Okay, Roxelle? I think we need to focus some resources in Roxelle. Our core went down and our weighted went down from 2s to 1s. And then our chronic absenteeism has stayed the same. So I think if we're looking for a place that we want to hit with some resources, my suggestion would be, more at Roxelle. Okay. Smith Road, weighted went down from a 3, ELP and the chronic absenteeism stayed the same. ELP, this is a school that actually has a large enough population of ELP kids that their score counts, and they got a 3, which puts us in that, at least 50% above. Gillette? Nice numbers for Gillette, 3, and then the chronic absenteeism in the highest category of 4. Rocks Middle, 2s, they stayed exactly the same. So this is exactly what they were the year before, no change in Rocks Middle. As well as the junior high, no change in the junior high from the year before. And then CNS. The core performance for CNS was a 4, and the weighted performance was a 4. That's on Regents exams. So what gets me about this all the time is that in our elementaries, all the way from, 3 through 8, right, and Paul knows exactly what I'm talking about. We see some struggles on the core and on the weighted. By the time the kids get to the high school, though, we're in the top 25%. So I don't know if it's the test. I don't know what the problem is, but I mean, by the time the kids, and that's why we have above a 90% graduation rate, is because they're scoring in the top 25% of all schools in New York State. Our core went up from a 3 from last year. Our weighted went up from a 2. So we actually jumped 2 categories in the weighted. I know. It's great. And then the grad rate and the chronic absenteeism stayed the same. So because of all of those numbers that I just gave you, which are probably mind-blowing, go ahead. Ta-da! All schools are currently in good standing. I have been here 17 years. That's the first time I've been able to say that in 17 years. All schools are in good standing. So hallelujah, exactly. And and we are gearing up for another round of state testing. And if we do well this year, I'll have 2 years in a row when I can come and do the presentation and say that all schools are in good standing. Questions?
Just a comment that, I think we all saw the BPT presentations this year, and the #1 goal for everybody was chronic absenteeism. So I'm really pleased to see in almost every case that went upwards. I know we have challenges and we know what they are. And as you said, we got to look at that closely, and thank you.
Welcome. Yes.
I also just wanted to add that I think that the fact that we're in good standing has to do with the fact that this is obviously what you were saying, Paul, but making sure that we're tackling the absenteeism problem, because having kids there more often obviously has more schools in good standing. So I appreciate all of the teachers and the parents at home making sure their kids are getting into school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're at the public comment section, and the board does set aside time for the public to comment on issues of interest to the school district and to the community. So with that, we have Ryan Kahar. I'm sorry, Kahar. Kahar? I apologize, and my name's been butchered my whole life, so I feel like I should get a pass, but I probably won't.
I've been called a lot worse.
But Ryan, we have 3 minutes. Our clerk was going to time it, so please.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight in front of the board. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Ryan Carraher. I'm a physical education teacher in the district, now at Roxborough Road Middle School. But tonight I'm here as the girls varsity wrestling coach. We started a girls varsity wrestling program this year. We had 13 individuals on the team and had a lot of success this year. For those of you that don't know, girls only wrestling started last year. I think there were 5 teams that had programs, and there were about 4 or 5 more that added them this year. I'm here tonight to expand upon the presentation last week by Mr. Bednarski, in which he put up on his slides about the need for an assistant varsity girls wrestling coach for the girls wrestling team. Like I said, we had a very successful year this year. For our first year, we had 13 girls on the team. I think only one had ever been involved in wrestling before this year, so we were a very inexperienced team. I only have 3 minutes, so I'm not going to brag too much about the girls. But we did have, out of the 13 girls, I think we had 9 that finished in the top 6 during a tournament this year. Also, we had Megan McGrath, who became the first CNS girls wrestler to make the New York State tournament this year. And she was one of the girls that had never wrestled before in her life until we started practice November 13th, and she made the New York State tournament. Safety of the athletes is a top reason I'm here to ask for an assistant varsity girls wrestling coach. This season, we had one incident at a tournament down in Homer where we had a girl break her thumb. They thought it was dislocated also. Luckily, I had a volunteer assistant this year, a certified volunteer assistant who was able to stay with the team. The girl did not have a parent at the tournament, so I rode along in the ambulance with her to make sure everything was okay until her parent got to the hospital down in Cortland. But luckily, like I said, I was able to have a volunteer assistant this year. That's never going to be a given for our girls wrestling program. If I were to have the paid assistant, I think that problem would have been eliminated this year. I would have definitely would have been able to have somebody stay back with the team while one of the coaches was able to go in the ambulance. Another problem without having a paid assistant coach is that many of our tournaments take place in 2 gymnasiums. We have 2 tournaments. We had 2 tournaments this year at the North Syracuse Junior High School. Maybe they'll be moved back to CNS next year, but who knows? But either way, we're using 2 different gyms for these tournaments. For any wrestling tournament, whether it's boys or girls, they will not allow an athlete to compete without a certified coach in the corner. So luckily, with the volunteer assistant this year, we were able to cover both gyms at the junior high. Also, we had a tournament up in SUNY Oswego that had 6 mats. So it's impossible for me to be on both ends of the gym at SUNY Oswego. 3 minutes goes quick. Again, thank you for your time. Again, my biggest concern for these girls is their safety. So I'm just asking you to include the varsity girls wrestling coach, assistant wrestling coach in next year's budget. Thank you.
Forward that in
yeah.
writing to the clerk. She'll be sure that the board receives that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Board of Education Committee reports. I'm going to start with policy.
Thank you, Paul. We have one policy on tonight's agenda for adoption by the board. I do want to make sure that the board understands that this is a temporary policy until we adopt the Area 1 policy manual in July. Our next policy committee meeting, which will also be virtual, will be next Tuesday, the 26th.
Hey, thank you. Crabtree.
Legislative Committee will be meeting April 3rd, but I just want to make a couple comments while we're talking about that. I contacted the New York School Boards Association about something. As you know, you're getting bombarded by Mr. Crabtree on all kinds of legislative issues. They have, with school districts, what is called an advocate. I would like to be that. With my background in legislative, and you can vote on it or you can just agree on it. So what the position would be, it's volunteer, is that whatever information the New York School Boards Association sends out about state budget or legislative, I make sure you get it. I'm really doing it now.
Yeah,
So
if I can just,
I don't know if you're involved too.
I'm involved, but if you want to be the advocate, that is totally fine with me. We're already making sure we're getting.
Yeah, I'm really doing it. So
If
Jill
anybody
would
has
have
any,
to send, Jill would have to send my name
Yeah.
into the New York School Boards Association. That it came up in the survey that we did. So thank you.
Thank you. On Friday night, I had the pleasure of going to the opening show of Mamma Mia and literally blown away. I am continually amazed at the talent that is throughout the district. It looks like a Broadway production, and so there are so many people involved. I wouldn't do justice in trying to thank everyone because I think I might miss someone, and then I don't want to do that. But from the cast to the sets, 4D production, The parents that are there, and again, there are students that are working on things until 10 PM at night, going home. If they haven't done their homework, they're getting their work done, and then they're trying to get a little bit of rest and then repeat for months on end. But the quality that you see is just absolutely outstanding, and you wouldn't realize that this is high school. And so there's so many people to thank. And again, having to see Mr. Redmond in the pit playing the drums was just kind of a little bit of the icing on the cake, because he is definitely there for them and trying to make sure he's meeting their needs. So I do want to comment on that. And coming up, Rocks Middle is going to be doing the Wizard of Oz this week, and Gillette will be doing the Lion King. So more productions to come. And I just want to thank all involved, because there's just so many comments that I've seen from the people that attended. It was truly amazing. And thank you. I think that's all I have for this week.
Thank you. Board of Education, other general comments? Have more? Sure.
I don't really need it, you know that.
Oh.
Right? But people at home, how are you doing? Okay. I want to thank Jill. So, Jill made sure, because Mr. Crabtree kind of stepped over the line, that senior citizens got in with a golden pass. And there were a lot of senior citizens. Jill went to every one of the performances Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and the crowds, I heard the crowd on Friday night was a record crowd. But I want to thank you, because seniors did not know. They think the senior pass is just for basketball and football. They got to use it for that. So Jill, thank you for the time that you spent there. I saw a lot of my friends that are senior citizens, including somebody in the union there. Okay, second thing is BOCES, you know me, BOCES. So our annual meeting is where we look at the budget, we meet the candidates, is April 4th. And as you know, many of our courses are in Cortland. So the students down in Cortland will be cooking for us and baking for us. And the meeting starts at 6 and it's over by 7:30. So anybody interested, I thought we carpool. I'll be going. Tom, if you're interested, basically, you get to meet other board members, you get to meet superintendents, and they go over what is called the administrative budget. There's a nice video about what happens at BOCES. I mentioned Skills USA, and I know, Tom, you're interested in that. It's during the vacation. It's April 25th. Bring your sneakers or put your sneakers on, because Dan knows that's something else. But I know Michael likes the next one. May 22nd is the Central New York School Boards Association annual meeting at the Lodge in Skaneateles. Okay, Tom, you want to go to this because the food is amazing. And again, it's school board members, it is superintendents, and it's a really great meeting to learn about other things that last year it was about Micron, and it was very good. So, and then the last is, glad some of the directors are still here. Is the Dollars for, if I don't do this, Rosemary Farfalia is going to be on me. So, Dollars for Scholars, which supports our students with over 100 scholarships, has a golf tournament. And each of you have a form that was given. And if my memory is there, is that we sponsored a hole at $200. I think we did. So I want everybody to think about that. And then if you would like to participate, $20 a person would be great from the board, and we could sponsor that hole again. But I'm knowing that Paul and Rosemary is a really good golfer, by the way. You know that, Paul. You know.
Oh, no comment.
But anyway,
Right there.
it would be great to have a team, John Rice. So, Miss Jill, I'm going to ask you to put these in the administrators. I know Chris will want one, Dan Bowles will want one. I'd really like to see a team there from the administration. Years ago, we always had one. Mrs. Taros was always there. So it's coming up in June, lots of time to save your money and support students. Now, tentatively, it's June 11th at the junior high, but that may change that date for this ceremony.
Thank you. Thomas, comments?
So not a ton to say today, but I thought I'd sorry, shed some light on the musical that happened this past Friday, Mamma Mia. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. But I have many friends who were working on whether it was stage design or costume design, 4D productions, or they were actually there up on the stage during the musical. Is gonna try and get the DVD if I can. It was really cool production. I heard that there's, like you guys said, the record crowd on Friday. I think it's amazing that these arts are really gaining the attention that they need in the district. I really think that if we can try and channel that attention from the community back into the actual student body, we may be able to maybe see some lowering in the actual level of commitment students might have to do. Cause like Mr. Bull said, sometimes students are staying all the way up until 10 p.m. at night, even on a school day. And if they're really passionate about it, that's a great thing, but you also have to kind of find that balance between the arts and the school. So if they're able to get some more students involved, maybe they can lessen the not burden, but the level of involvement some students might have to dedicate to. Yeah, that's basically it. I already talked about the Gillette Road Middle School Lunch Rescue Initiative program thing before. 400 items came in today. That's pretty awesome. We're currently in the talks, looking into bringing it to other schools, such as the junior high, maybe even a couple of the elementary schools, because they've been reaching out about that, seeing the food waste that they have in their schools and how we can potentially funnel that food back through into our snack pack program. And yeah.
Hey, thank you, Thomas. Okay, moving along to routine action items, I'd look for a motion for consideration approval of the minutes of the March 4th meeting. Motion from Mr. Crabtree, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Motion, please, to place items B, C, and D before us. A motion from Mr. Ludden, second from Ms. Zegru. These are the classification and placements of disabled students. Those two, okay. C. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, and those are carried. Motion for item D, please, acknowledgement of business office reports for January. Thorne, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. In declaration of marketable and non-marketable surplus. Motion, please, from Mr. Ludden, second from Mr. Marizio. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And discussion action items A, a motion, please, to set the public hearing. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Dr. Kramer. Any discussion there? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, item carried. B, to seek a resolution, a motion, please, to place that before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Marizio. Any discussion there? Yep, that was in the Friday letter, so that's a roll call. Okay. Aye. Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. I please get a motion to place C and D together, non-resident health and welfare rates and non-resident tuition rates. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Zegru. Any discussion on C and D? Being none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Thank you. E, please, approval of the amended 23-24 calendar. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Ludden. Any discussion? I can't remember how many amendments. Okay. Go home, don't look at the sun. There'll be clouds, don't worry. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And approval of the 2024-25 district calendar. Motion, Mr. Marizio, second from Dr. Kramer. Any discussion there? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And G, policy 5021. Motion to put that before us. Motion, Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Ludden. That was mentioned to us by Mr. Thorne. It's a temporary policy. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Have some retirements to acknowledge. We have Donna Troy, typist 2, retiring with 22.4 years of service, and Charlene Anguish, teacher aide, retiring with 20 years of service. And I congratulate them and wish them long and healthy retirement. If I could get a motion to place instructional personnel report A before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion there? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Support staff personnel report B, a motion to place that before us, please. Motion from Ms. Zegru, second from Mr. Herman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And a motion, please, to place administrative personnel report C before us. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Ludd. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. I want to congratulate Melissa, who's here. I don't see Kimberly Rice, but she was also appointed to House Principal at the high school. So congrats and forward to seeing you more. Okay, at this time, I'm going to make a motion for executive session. I'll ask for a second. We're going to move into executive session. If it's approved for the purpose of reviewing one legal issue with no action to follow and 2 personnel issues with no action to follow. A second, please. Mr. Thorne, any discussion, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. And a motion for adjournment, Ms. Marizio, second, Mr. Herman. All in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Thank you. 7